everybody, and welcome. David Lindstedt here, and today I have a very, very special guest, Mr. Mark Armour. And Mark has written an article for the Journal of Business Continuity and Emergency Planning, and I'm very fortunate enough to have him on our video cast to talk about it. The article is called Busting Myths and Building Resilience. So Mark, I'm going to turn it right over to you. Can you summarize the article and sort of what's it about?
I think the title sums it up best. It's Busting Myths and Building Resilience. So the idea is, what are those practices within our industry that are widely touted, used extensively, but perhaps don't provide all the benefit that we think we do, and perhaps we either need to adjust our thinking around them or maybe abandon them entirely.
So potentially some controversial stuff, some new ground maybe others haven't explored. Let's start by talking about the myths.
All right, so first, executive support. And this is one of my particular, pet peeves. A lot of us in the industry tout executive support as, a panacea for all ills. It's the one thing, if we can get that, it makes the rest of the execution of our program much, much easier. I found that's really not the case. I think we sometimes think of executive support as translating into executive action, which isn't always the case. Just because an executive approves some initiative within your program or attends one of your meetings or approves a specific set of policies doesn't mean they're turning around and taking the action that you expect. We as practitioners still need to do that legwork. We're still the ones tasked with executing against our programs, and no amount of executive support is going to change that.
Tell us about the myth of the smoking hole.
So my experience is a lot of practitioners use the worst case scenario around which to build their program. They design all of their procedures, their strategies, their plans around essentially loss of all dependencies and all aspects of their organization. My problem or issue with this is, I think it diminishes the value that business continuity provides for the more day-to-day issues. The power losses, the technology losses, vendor, even just workspace. The example I always cite is the coffee maker that breaks down. Then you wind up with a leak in your break room, which expands, then takes out a large part of perhaps your workspace. And this would not fall into anybody's worst case scenario or smoking hole scenario, but it's something that most of us are much more likely to face. And the better prepared we are, from my experience, in dealing with those smaller, more day-to-day issues, the better we're going to be at being able to handle the large-scale worst-case disasters.
Third myth. What's our third myth?
Our third myth is, and I'm going to refer to my notes, centralized authority. And this is one that I've experienced personally. The problem with centralized authority is we always want these tools, we always want these processes and procedures where communications and decision-making are funneled to one central, essentially, decision-making authority. The problem that I found is when you actually have events, what's the first thing that always goes? It's communication. Right? The people have to make the decisions, they're gone or they're unavailable or you can't reach them. What I like to do is always delegate authority. So rather than centralizing things up through the chain of command, have provisions within your program where authority is delegated to people in emergency situations, and you've set the expectation that in some kind of event, they may be without communications and they may be without executive level decision making, and they're essentially on their own. So they have the authority to make the decisions, and they're also prepared to make those decisions.
It's not too hard to imagine that like that, you're on your own. And the communications are down, or certainly I imagine you've seen the same thing many times, that the leaders that you think are going to be there to help make these decisions and help sort of guide, they get pulled off, they get pulled up, and they're up in some room somewhere with the upper management, and now you've got to make those decisions.